Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime series, proudly powered by leadershipbydesign.co, where we aim to add value to people's lives. You can listen to us live every Wednesday and Thursday at lunchtime on ebizradio.com, where we talk everything leadership, coaching, and marketing. And you can listen to the Lunchtime series on all your major podcast channels today. On our leadership and coaching segment, I'm going to put you in sort of both areas. The Chief Executive Officer of Changefolio, Debbi Scheun. Debbi, how are you doing? Am I saying Scheun correctly? Debbi Scheun, right?
It's actually Scheun.
Scheun,
yeah, good enough. Thank you.
Debbi, thank you for joining us and thank you for being here. And I know that I know you're very busy because it's taken a while for us to get to to this point. But Debbi, don't you want to tell us more about who you are, what you do, and speak? Tell us what we're going to be chatting about today.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Kevin. And thank you so much for having me on the show. Great to be here. So I'm a change management specialist, and I work with organizations, helping them navigate change and transformation. And the company I work for, or that I've started, is Changefolio, and we specialize in really helping businesses through large scale and complex changes. So for example, banks that are going through digital transformation, we will work with them to help their leaders and their people implement the change, get ready for the change, and land the change, and make sure that it's embedded into how they work going forward.
Fantastic. Now, I mean, you work with a number of large corporates with anything from 2,000 to 40,000 plus employees. So what are the significant changes you're seeing in the marketplace? Because that's quite the range, but with that comes a lot of, and I've seen it also, working with brands, comes a lot of evidence, and you start seeing patterns of behavior and patterns forming in corporates. So what are you noticing that are some of those significant changes?
Kevin, it's been really interesting because we work across multiple industries, and both in the South African context as well as the international context. So at the moment, I'm in the UK, and we're seeing that a lot of organizations are changing their operating models. So they're definitely shifting to operating models that are more client-centered, whereas in the past, operating models were very product-focused. And now they're saying, how can we approach clients with a sort of multiple product offering, putting the client at the center of how we do business? With that, they're also introducing a lot of matrix structures, including the agile structures. So putting in place product owners, again, linking back to really putting the client at the center of what they do. But underpinning all of this is digital transformation. We are seeing across every single industry that companies are shifting towards, how do we automate how we do things? How do we bring in platforms that make it easier for our clients to engage with us, as well as for our employees to do business with our clients? So a massive shift towards digital transformation and optimizing how organizations engage with clients, take products to clients, introduce self-service channels, and also make sure that they are taking products and services more quickly to their customers. So, really delivering at speed and also delivering good enough. Not perfect solutions, but good enough solutions.
That's amazing. And because I mean, that really, I think that provides you with such variety, right? So there's never a day where you like,
no.
Oh, there's another thing we have to do. Because different corporates have different needs and different challenges. So that creates a wonderful space of always having to create and innovate.
Yes.
Even though you have a wonderful structure of change management happening,
yes,
the innovation process is right up there where you've got to come up with what is best for this environment.
100%.
That must be pretty exciting.
Kevin, it really is. And that's why we love what we do. Because with every single client that we work with, because we're we're helping them implement the change. We're constantly at the forefront of what they're doing to take their businesses to the next level. So we're always working with what is either, let's say, based on their future goals. What is it that's cutting edge in terms of technology, whether it's, for example, robotics or AI? What is it around the new shift towards another key trend is around just the value of data. So in everything that we're doing, it's how we're implementing change, but working with organizations to basically commercialize how data is used. We're always at the forefront. So we're finding that when you're working with one client, you're seeing other clients as well bringing to the fore innovations around, how they are using digital platforms to reach their clients. But everything we're doing is always at the cutting edge. So we never have a dull moment. We're always exposed to something new. And as part of that, we also have to reinvent how we are leading and managing change with our clients, which is quite exciting. You can't stick to the old way of doing things. And there's a common saying, which is, is change changing? And we have to change the way we do change constantly to keep up with this cutting edge innovation that we're seeing at our clients.
Yeah, I love that. And just to add to what you're saying is for the last 2 years, I've been doing a lot of research because, I do a lot of around human behavior.
Yes.
And one of the some of the research that I've actually come across was the actual work and industry neutral growth skills that you find for humans, and the core principles or core behaviors that humans are needing to evolve more into. And there's only 5, and those 5 can really lead to so much innovation in that environment. So, listening to you now, like as much as, there's change, systems change and processes that can happen, I'm sure that, that whole behavioral mindset change also, is part of the foreground and the forefront of really getting that change implemented and happening.
Yes, so true. It's so interesting. We are seeing a lot of our clients are asking us to help them train and coach their leaders around leadership agility. So the behavior change element includes quite a few things. So the first is leaders stepping away from traditional leadership styles into agile leadership styles.
Yeah.
And there's a whole set of behaviors behind that. But one of the key things is, as a leader in an agile leadership context, the goal is to constantly work on the environment, not in the environment. And by doing that, to equip your teams to work autonomously. So that as the business innovates and evolves, that they themselves can actually be the implementers that are driving the change, making decisions within a delegation of authority. Excuse me. But that being one of the things. So leadership agility. Secondly, growth mindset. Moving from when we're dealing with rapid and continuous change in environments, we need to make sure that when we're facing as leaders obstacles and challenges, or even as employees, that we see that as an opportunity, not as something that is disabling us, but rather how do we view this as an opportunity to do things better, to overcome, to find solutions that we can use in the future. And then, of course, the third thing being around resilience. A lot of people have the mindset that resilience is either natural and that you can't develop it, but studies show that you can actually build resilience. And being able to, by having a mindset of overcoming obstacles and challenges, is to actually build that ability to bounce back when things have not gone according to plan. So the quicker you can bounce back, the more of a growth mindset you have, and the better you can lead in an agile environment, and the more successful you're likely to be as a leader.
Yeah, I love that. And I always coin it down to the simplicity of leaders create leaders.
Beautiful. Yeah.
When you really like think of it, and you kind of go, mean, because as a leader, when you've got a bunch of leaders working around you, that means you don't have to micromanagement. That they're
right.
actually leading. They're leading
That's
from
right.
a position of power. So that you as their leader create their vision, and you all get on board with that. So it's everything you're saying. Like, I love that you've sort of broken it down into those three elements. But I mean, what challenges are you seeing in the workplace? Because because I mean, with those challenges come massive change in any case. And your point is changing. You kind of go, what does change look like now? Because the economy is what it is, the load shedding, the impacts, but even at an international level with, I mean, if we look at the US markets, if we look at the UK in itself, there's a lot of instability that they're going through, and uncertainty that's being created. And I think, with having people like yourself in a position where you can actually create some kind of certainty and kind of go, okay, how do we then change to evolve and adapt? But I mean, what are some of those challenges you're seeing?
Well, some of the challenges are that organizations typically will have a look at what is our 5-year strategy. So yes, they've got a vision, and then they map out their strategy for the next 5 years. But because we're seeing such significant shifts in the business landscape, that is affecting strategy and planning cycles.
Yeah.
So significant changes that we're seeing are that the impact, for example, of economic factors or political factors are changing strategy. So organizations may have a plan in place, but what they're doing is they're saying, let's stick to our vision, but we're going to do shorter planning cycles because there's so many external factors that could affect the plan that we have for the next few years that we constantly need to regroup. So what we're seeing with most of our clients is that at least every 3 months, they are revisiting the strategy. They're setting objectives and key results to say, let's do shorter planning cycles against our strategy to still achieve our vision, but to regroup and realign depending on what external factors are impacting us. So if we have a look at the South African context, with load shedding, where there are significant power outages, 9.5 hours of downtime, we're seeing the impact to workforce. This is all things that South Africans know. We're seeing the impact to productivity, to personal lives. There's a significant shift towards saying, well, we need to regroup on our strategy around employee wellness. We need to regroup on our strategies around stability and infrastructure for our business. So all of these shifts are taking place, but in shorter planning cycles to make sure the strategy is still achieved and the vision still achieved. It might just change shape and form each quarter. So definitely a shift there.
So, and I think that also speaks to, the core competencies, of value, and what are we valuing, and how is, is this valuable to our business right now? Is this in alignment with our values now? I mean, considering the pace and rate at what AI is sort of happening, and how people are using it, to help them do their jobs. But also, like, are we as humans lagging behind slightly? Are we really, challenging our own mindsets and our own frames enough? And I think all of those factors, and that's why, working on shorter cycles makes so much sense when you think, things are, it's that whole VUCA kind of approach, and the VUCA world we live in, and it's quite volatile and unsure. And
Mm.
how adjustable are you
Mm.
to when things, and how does that affect your mood even? Because
Mm.
load shedding can be such a frustration to people.
Yes. And of course, something very foreign to international organizations, so organizations outside of South Africa or Southern African region. And just to your point around VUCA is, again, linking back to leadership agility. With the shift in all of these factors, economic, whether it's client demands, whether it is, emerging fintech markets, etc., that are really challenging how traditional business has been done. Again, that ability to have agility in how you lead, not only people, but yourself, is such a key part to staying ahead of the times. And to your point, if we don't adjust and move away from traditional mindsets on how we manage and lead business and drive strategy, we will lag behind.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm totally going to throw a complete weird question to you, but just to, because one of the things I think that is really getting pushed as a narrative, but subtly, behind closed doors, is spirituality, and whatever that means for so many people in so many ways. Do you believe that? Do you think that could be a necessary well-being aspect to leadership? That, from a spiritual, from a whatever sort of mindfulness, approach that you have for your day, whether that's God or spirit or the universe or whatever, that wellness aspect ties into this as well. Because I think, so for so many years we've had this disassociation from, how I am being and how I show up in my environment is really my decision and my responsibility. I'm not looking after my spirituality and the essence of what makes me feel good. I completely detach those two because I'm in this work environment. We need that.
Yes, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. We are definitely, certainly personally, from my own perspective, it's a massive factor for me as a person and as a leader and as a business owner. Secondly, what we're seeing with our clients is, interestingly enough, well, I suppose it makes perfect sense, but from the COVID era, there was a significant shift towards that spiritual element. And I think for a lot of people, based on their belief systems or whatever that may look like for them, there's an aspect of hope that comes in. So when you're faced with all of these challenges, this volatile environment, the uncertainty around what's going to happen next, the ambiguity of what we're living in, and the complexity, linking that all back to VUCA, is this all impacts our personal wellness.
Yeah.
And for so many people, the spiritual aspect becomes something that they hold on to because it helps them navigate all of this in a way that's just beyond my wellness when it comes to my physical, financial, emotional, my work life. There's this element that is so critical. And Kevin, we see in South Africa that is so prevalent. There are so many people we speak to where that is a foundation for how they are dealing with a lot of the external factors that are impacting them in their personal lives and their work lives. We're working with quite a few wellness teams across some of the large corporates in South Africa, and that specific aspect is one of the wellness dimensions. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you've tied those things together for us today, because I'm pushing that agenda so much at the moment, because like part of what we as leaders and business owners and businesses out there do is we grew up like that. We grew up that your church stuff and your spiritual stuff is for home stuff.
Yes.
And what we're starting to recognize is, and I think that hope element that you speak of is really, it's a fundamental inner core, intangible, that
Yes.
you're holding on to. It's an
Yes.
obvious, visible thing. And
Yes.
that is something you cultivate within you, however you do that, in whatever capacity.
Yes. Yes.
But it does help us navigate the VUCA environment a little bit
Yes.
better, based on the fact that I feel better because
Yes.
I'm paying attention to how I'm feeling and
Mm.
what I'm bringing into that environment on a daily, hourly basis.
Exactly.
I love
Exactly.
that.
Mm.
So, I mean, with some of the challenges, a really good question to ask is, how do organizations build a change management as a competence? So,
Mm.
I
Yes.
think people also know about change management,
Mm.
but having it as an actual competence and go, okay, cool, guys, there's a way to do this. There's ways to kind of
Yes.
people on board and get
Yes.
into the motion of change. How do
Very
we
good.
build it as a competence?
It's beautiful. I think if you look at it holistically, there's the head, heart, hands aspect. So head being like, how do I think about change? What are my mindsets around change? Heart being the link to my emotions around change. How do I respond to change? Am I an early adopter? Am I a resistor and perhaps somebody that's always late to the party when it comes to change? And then there's hands, which are what are the practical steps and tools that I can take to implement change, whether that is as an employee or as a leader of the business. So what we do with businesses is we provide change management training for leaders, for employees, for HR practitioners, project managers, as well as for change champions and change management practitioners. So that really gives you like, these are the steps that you follow. Here's a suite of tools that you can use to, as a leader, cascade change, engage people in the change. But then we've also got, how do you make sure from a heart perspective that people are being taken through and understanding their emotional responses to change and how committed they are to change. So we use a tool called the Change Curve, and we always get feedback from people around any change that's taking place to say, where do you position yourself right now? Are you for this change? Are you in denial? Is this change, are you fearful about the change? Are you excited about the change? And we get people really to reflect on where they are and to help them then unpack why they might be, for example, against the change or fearful of the change, and work with them through that process. So it's really about training and providing coaching, engagement, tools, support to help organizations navigate change, but very importantly, to build the competence through knowledge and skills transfer.
I love that. And I love that you bring the head, heart, and hands in it, because it's a very practical kind of way to think of through it, to kind of go, are their heads in the game? Like
Yes.
ask those questions. And then,
Yes.
how does it affect them? And how do they feel about it? And then last,
Yes.
what is the actual implementation, and how will they do it, and how will they get on board with this getting it done?
Exactly. Yes.
I love that. So what are the challenges that you've seen in the change management discipline? Because there's a lot of change management out there, and there's modules, models, there's different everything. What do you
That's a
think
great
of
question.
the key challenges that you've seen in the discipline?
Kevin, that's a great question. And there are a few things that we've seen emerging. The first being that there are definitely different levels of understanding of what change management is. Change management is a science and a discipline. And some people have the perception that it's just communications, or that it is communications and desk drops. And that's my absolute worst, when people say, oh, oh, are you the people that do the desk drops? And that's not the case at all. So it's the understanding that change management is about helping organizations implement their strategy, and that there's a real discipline around how one goes about doing that. So maturity is the first thing. A second thing is that change practitioners are not necessarily changing with the times. So they're still applying old ways of doing things to agile ways of working. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
The way that we lead and manage change as practitioners needs to be aligned to new ways of working, agile ways of working, rapid change cycles.
Yeah.
The third thing that's worth mentioning is digitization. Change managers are still using old tools to manage change. And one of the things we did as Changefolio is we identified this as a big challenge in the market. We opened Changefolio Ireland, and we have built change management software that can be used by practitioners to house centralized enterprise data that can be used by organizations to see the change landscape, and of course to identify key risks and also to do trend analysis around change management. So those are three of the key things that I think are challenging the change management discipline.
I love that. And I think on your last point, I think it's so true. And, I find as an NLP practitioner, a lot of what I've done in training is really foundational work of understanding how the brain distorts, generalizes, deletes information, and. But what I've also found is there are NLP practitioners that really they follow it as an old school kind of practice, and they try and use like this very almost stunted way of looking at it, and they don't evolve it into how do you take this and use it so that it's a tool and it's a structure, but how do you apply it to today and into today's context and content?
Such a good point.
How do you match that?
Yes.
So, I mean, the last question that we have here is, what do you think the ultimate purpose of change management is? Because I think some people also still look at it as a it's almost like training, it's a do we really need it kind of approach.
Yes.
But I mean, what is the ultimate purpose? Because I think it's so necessary, because change is always going to be there, and how we get through it is if we don't have some kind of way, and that's the thing about what leaders don't recognize is brains love structure and strategy.
Yes.
Like it's a human thing. It's your brain loves it. So, and change management is structured, and it has strategy to get you through the change.
That is exactly right.
What do you think as the final note? Or like, what is the purpose of change management?
The ultimate purpose of change management is to land the change successfully and to ensure there's adoption of the change. So everything that we do is about, if you've got your strategy, if you have got particular projects or initiatives underway that will help you achieve your strategy, studies show that 70% of planned organizational change fails. That's based on a Gallup study, 70%. However, with change management, you significantly increase the likelihood of landing that strategic change and driving adoption. Yeah. So it's ultimately about helping organizations achieve their strategy by landing change and getting adoption of change.
I love that, because and that's why I, became certified as a practitioner, because I started recognizing that the training interventions I was doing needed more. They needed more sustainability through this process, and they needed measurements that needed to be put in place, and feedback and reporting, and assessment, and suddenly I was going, okay, Kevin, like just change management is necessary. you're gonna do this and get the actual, So I see it's an absolute necessity. So to conclude today, if you had to give sort of large corporate out there, or leading large scale digital transformation, if they actually putting it out there as leading digital transformation,
Yes.
what advice would you give them, and what would you say that they need to start considering as a change process?
Very good. I would definitely say the starting point is include change management as a work stream in your change initiatives. So when you're implementing strategy, allocate budget, allocate resources. Because it's a people science, it's often left out of the budgeting process. But we know that you are more likely to succeed if you include it. So that would be my word of advice. Include it from the start. Yeah.
Because it is a people science, and the thing is, you can just go, you can Google that, you can Google research. There's so much research on why change management actually has that impact that it does.
That's right.
Debbi, thank you so much. It's so
Thank you,
much
Kevin.
fun talking to you.
It was wonderful. Thank you. And you're a marvelous host. Really enjoyed it. Thank you also for your insights. And just all the best. And all the best to the listeners as well.
Fantastic. Guys, if you want to get hold of Debbi, I'll put the link and everything in the description boxes. She's the Chief Executive Officer at Changefolio. Debbi Scheun.
Scheun?
Scheun. It's German, right?
It's pronounced like the German Scheun, yes.
Debbi Scheun. Okay, there we go. They're not going to forget it now. So thank you so much, Debbi. Have a wonderful week, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Kevin. Take care.